You have 30 seconds to decide, Miss Simon. The words echoed through the luxurious office like a frozen ultimatum. Eliza Simon swallowed hard, her fingers trembling as she held the Mont Blanc pen that felt like it weighed a ton. Across the mahogany desk, 3 men in impeccable suits watched her with the patience of predators, waiting for the right moment to strike. I don't understand. Her voice came out weaker than she intended. Why me? There are thousands of women in New York who… 20 seconds. The man in the middle, Mr. Stone Sr., adjusted his glasses with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Eliza knew that surname from the newspapers, one of the most powerful families in the country. But what was she, a simple librarian from Brooklyn, doing here? The answer came in the form of a photograph slid across the desk. Eliza felt the world spin as she saw her younger sister, Harmony, unconscious in a hospital bed. The accident was unfortunate, Stone Sr. murmured. Experimental treatment in Switzerland costs $2 million. You don't even have $2,000 in your account. 10 seconds. Eliza looked at the contract in front of her. The words danced on the page. Marriage of convenience, 6 months, compensation of $2 million. Pretend to be William Stone's wife. 5, 4, 3. I'll sign, she screamed, and the pen scratched across the paper before her reason could protest. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the door opening. Eliza raised her eyes and felt her heart stop. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes green as emeralds and a small scar on his chin that inexplicably made him even more attractive. He wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, completely different from the expensive suits of the other men. But it was the expression of genuine surprise on his face that made her blink, confused. Father? His voice was deep, velvety, with an almost imperceptible accent. What's happening here? Mr. Stone Sr. stood up, a triumphant smile on his lips. William, my son, I want you to meet your new wife. Silence dominated the environment once again. Eliza saw all emotions pass through the man's face. Surprise, confusion, anger, and then something she couldn't identify when their eyes met. Excuse me? William blinked slowly, as if waking from a bad dream. My what? Miss Simon here has just signed a very interesting contract, said Stone Sr., tapping his fingers on the desk. 6 months of marriage. In exchange, $2 million to save her sick little sister. Quite romantic, don't you think? Eliza felt her cheeks catch fire. The way the man looked at her now was no longer surprise, but something close to horror. Father, we talked about this. I said I wouldn't. And I said you have no choice. Stone Sr.'s voice became sharp. Your inheritance depends on it. The board of directors demands a married man in the presidency. You know the family rules. But forcing a stranger to… Nobody was forced. Stone Sr. pointed at Eliza. She signed of her own free will. Didn't you, dear? Eliza wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her. But then she remembered Harmony, alone in the hospital, depending on a miracle that cost $2 million. Yes, I signed. William ran his hand through his dark hair, clearly frustrated. This is insane. Father, you can't just buy a wife for me like she's a car. I can, and I just did. Stone Sr. headed for the door. The ceremony is tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon. Make peace, you two. You have plenty of time to get to know each other. And with that, he left, leaving Eliza and William alone in the cavernous office. The silence stretched for long seconds. Eliza fixed her gaze on her own hands, too mortified to face the man who had just technically become her future husband. Look, William finally said, his voice softer now. I know this must be scary for you, but don't worry. We'll sort this out. There are lawyers who… No. The word came out firmer than Eliza felt. What do you mean, no? She finally raised her eyes to meet his. For a moment she was lost in those green eyes, but then she remembered why she was there. My sister is dying. Her voice trembled slightly. This contract is her only chance. I'm not backing down. William studied her for a long moment, and Eliza had the strange sensation that he was seeing beyond the surface, reading something in her soul that she didn't even know she was showing. What's her name? He asked softly. Harmony. Eliza smiled for the first time that terrible day. She's 17, and the most incredible person you could ever meet. She's a pianist, you know? She has magic hands. Or had, before the accident. What kind of accident? Hit and run. The driver fled. Eliza felt tears threaten, but held them back. She was coming back from music school when the doctors say there's a new therapy in Switzerland, but $2 million. $2 million. William approached the window, observing the city below. When he finally turned around, there was a different determination in his eyes. All right. What? I said all right. We'll do this. Eliza blinked, confused. But you said it was insane. And it is. Completely insane. He approached her, and Eliza realized he was even taller than she had thought. But if this is what will save your sister, well, I've done stranger things for worse reasons. You would do this, even without knowing me? William shrugged, but there was something in his eyes that made her think the decision hadn't been as casual as he wanted it to seem. I know enough. He extended his hand. William Stone, but you can call me Will. Pleasure to meet you. Wife. Eliza hesitated for a moment before accepting the handshake. His touch was firm, warm, and sent an unexpected electric current through her arm. Eliza Simon, and thank you. I don't know how I'll repay this. You don't need to repay anything. Will smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she had seen in that office. You just need to pretend you love me for 6 months. Can't be that hard, right? If only she knew how wrong she was. The alarm clock's shrill cry pierced through Eliza's restless sleep at 6 a.m. For a blissful moment, she thought yesterday had been nothing more than a stress-induced nightmare. Then reality crashed down like a cold wave when she saw the business card on her nightstand. William Stone, CEO, Stone Enterprises. Oh God, she whispered, burying her face in her pillow. I'm getting married today. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Good morning, wife-to-be. Car will pick you up at 10 a.m. for dress fitting. Try not to panic. Will Eliza stared at the message. How did he even get her number? And more importantly, how did he know she was panicking? Another buzz. P.S. Breathing exercises help. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. Despite everything, Eliza found herself smiling. Maybe William Stone wasn't the cold, cruel millionaire she'd expected. At exactly 10 a.m., a sleek black Mercedes pulled up outside her modest Brooklyn apartment. The driver, a kind-faced man in his 50s, tipped his hat. Miss Simon, I'm James. Mr. Stone asked me to ensure you're comfortable today. As they drove through Manhattan's busy streets, Eliza's phone rang. Harmony's doctor. Miss Simon, I have wonderful news about your sister's treatment approval. Actually, doctor, there's been a development. Eliza took a deep breath. The funding has been secured. When can we begin the transfer to Switzerland? The silence on the other end was palpable. Miss Simon, are you certain? This is a very expensive. I'm certain. After hanging up, Eliza realized James had been watching her in the rearview mirror with a knowing smile. Good news, I hope. The best, she whispered, tears threatening to spill. The bridal boutique was unlike anything Eliza had ever seen. Chandeliers hung from ceiling frescoes, and mannequins displayed gowns that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Miss Simon! An elegant woman with a French accent glided toward her. I am Madame Dubois. Monsieur Stone called personally to ensure everything is parfait for today. Before Eliza could protest, she was whisked into a private room where 3 dresses hung like works of art. The first was a traditional ball gown that made her feel like she was drowning in satin. The second was so tight she could barely breathe. But the third was perfect. Simple ivory silk that flowed like water, with delicate lace sleeves and a neckline that was elegant without being revealing. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't see a fake bride. She saw a woman who looked radiant. Mon Dieu, Madame Dubois gasped. It is as if this dress was made for you. How much does it? Already taken care of, ma chérie. Monsieur Stone, he has very good taste, no? At 2:30 p.m., Eliza stood outside City Hall, clutching a small bouquet of white roses that had mysteriously appeared in the car. Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped it twice. Deep breaths, she muttered to herself. It's just 6 months. Just pretend. Eliza. She turned and her breath caught. Will stood at the bottom of the steps wearing a navy blue suit that fit him like it was custom made. His dark hair was slightly tousled by the wind, and when he smiled, she felt something flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with nerves. You look, he seemed to struggle for words. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. Thank you. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. You clean up pretty well yourself." As they walked up the steps together, Will suddenly stopped. "Eliza, I need you to know something before we go in there." Her heart skipped. Was he changing his mind? "I called the hospital this morning. Harmony's transfer to Switzerland has been arranged for tomorrow. Whatever happens between us, that won't change. This isn't conditional on our arrangement." Eliza stared at him, speechless. "Will, why would you do that?" "Because no one should have to choose between their family and their freedom." His green eyes were intense, serious. "What we're doing today is business. Saving your sister is just human decency." Before she could respond, he offered his arm. "Shall we go get married, Miss Simon?" The ceremony was surreal. Judge Morrison, a cheerful woman in her 60s, treated them like any other couple in love. Will's answers were confident, his "I do" firm and clear. When it was Eliza's turn, she found herself looking into his eyes and meaning it more than she expected. "You may kiss the bride." This was the moment Eliza had been dreading. How do you fake a first kiss with a stranger? But when Will's hands cupped her face gently and his lips touched hers, soft and warm and surprisingly tender, her mind went completely blank. The kiss lasted only seconds, but when they broke apart, Eliza felt dizzy. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Stone," Judge Morrison beamed. Mrs. Stone. The name sent a strange thrill through her. Outside City Hall, photographers waited. Apparently, word had leaked that William Stone was getting married. Will immediately stepped protectively in front of Eliza, his arm around her waist. "Smile and wave," he murmured in her ear. "Pretend you're madly in love with me." The problem was, with his arm around her and his cologne filling her senses, pretending wasn't proving to be as difficult as she'd expected. "Mr. Stone, who is your mystery bride? Is this why you've been turning down all those socialite daughters? Will you be taking over as CEO now that you're married?" Will raised his hand, and the crowd quieted. "Gentlemen, ladies, I'd like you to meet my wife, Eliza. We prefer to keep our private life private, but yes, we're very happy. His wife." The words sent another flutter through her chest. Later, sitting in a quiet Italian restaurant Will had chosen, Eliza found herself actually enjoying his company. He was funny, asking her about her work at the library with genuine interest. "So you're telling me you can find any book in that entire building just by looking at someone?" "It's not magic," Eliza laughed, twirling pasta around her fork. "I just pay attention. Mrs. Chen always comes in on Thursdays looking for historical romance. Tommy Rodriguez is working his way through every science fiction series we have. People have patterns." "What's your pattern?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean? What do you read when no one's watching?" Eliza hesitated. "Poetry, classical literature, and, sometimes romance novels. But the really good ones. The ones where the characters actually grow and change and—" She stopped, realizing she was rambling. "And what?" Will leaned forward, genuinely interested. "And where love actually transforms people into better versions of themselves," she finished quietly. Their eyes met across the candle-lit table, and for a moment, the pretense fell away. This wasn't business. This wasn't fake. This was just them. Will's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. His expression darkened as he read the message. "What is it?" "My father." Will's jaw tightened. "He wants to see us tomorrow morning. Apparently he has some guidelines about our arrangement." The word arrangement hit Eliza like cold water. Right. This wasn't real. None of this was real. But as Will walked her to her door that night, his hand warm on her back, Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere between "I do" and "good night," something had shifted. Something that felt dangerously like the beginning of something real. Eliza had never been inside a penthouse before, but she was pretty sure they weren't supposed to feel like ice palaces. Will's father had insisted they meet at his Park Avenue residence, and the moment she stepped off the private elevator, she felt like she'd entered a museum where touching anything would trigger alarms. "Breathe," Will whispered, his hand finding the small of her back. "He's all bark and very little bite. Easy for you to say," Eliza murmured back. "You're not the one who got bought like a vintage wine." Will's chuckle was interrupted by the sharp click of Italian leather shoes on marble. "Ah, the happy couple." Stone Sr. emerged from what looked like a library, arms spread wide in a gesture that seemed more theatrical than welcoming. "How was the honeymoon night? Separate beds, I assume?" Eliza felt her cheeks flame. But Will's response was smooth as silk. "Our sleeping arrangements are none of your business, Father. Everything is my business when it comes to this family's reputation." Stone Sr. gestured toward an intimidating seating area. "Sit. We have much to discuss." The discussion turned out to be a PowerPoint presentation. An actual PowerPoint. About their fake marriage. Rule number 1. Stone Sr. clicked to a slide titled, "Public Appearances." You will attend all major social functions together. The Hamptons Charity Gala next weekend. The Metropolitan Museum fundraiser, the— "Father," Will interrupted. "We agreed to 6 months of marriage, not 6 months of performing circus acts. The board needs to see stability, William. A united front." The next slide appeared. Physical displays of affection. Hand-holding in public is mandatory. Kissing should appear spontaneous but not excessive. "Mrs. Stone, you'll need proper wardrobe consultation." "Mrs. Stone has a name," Will said sharply, "and excellent taste in clothing." Eliza shot him a grateful look. Yesterday's dress had been beautiful, but it was literally the most expensive thing she'd ever worn. "Fine, Eliza." Stone Sr.'s tone suggested he was being incredibly generous. "You'll need to learn about art, wine, classical music. Can't have you embarrassing us at society functions." "Actually," Eliza said quietly, "I have a master's in literature with a minor in art history. I speak 3 languages, and I've been playing piano since I was 5. The room fell silent. Stone Sr. blinked several times as if recalibrating his assumptions. "Well, that's unexpected." "There's a lot you don't know about my wife," Will said, and the pride in his voice made Eliza's heart skip. The presentation continued for another excruciating hour. No separate vacations, no public disagreements, no socializing with people who might leak inappropriate information. By the time they left, Eliza felt like she'd signed up to be a robot, not a fake wife. "That was horrible," she said as they walked through Central Park. They'd both needed air after the suffocating meeting. "Welcome to my childhood," Will replied grimly. "Everything choreographed, everything for show." They found a quiet bench near the pond. Families were feeding ducks, children were laughing, and for a moment, Eliza could almost forget she was now part of a multi-billion-dollar charade. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Shoot. Why didn't you just marry someone from your social circle? Someone who already knew all the rules?" Will was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "Because they all wanted something from me. Money, status, connections. You're the first person who's marrying me for someone else entirely. That's sad." "Is it?" "I think it's refreshing." He turned to face her. "You're not here because you want to be Mrs. William Stone. You're here because you love your sister more than anything. That's the most honest motivation anyone's ever had for being in my life." Before Eliza could process that statement, her phone rang. Switzerland. "Miss Simon? This is Dr. Richter from the Geneva Medical Center. Your sister arrived safely this morning and we've begun preliminary assessments. I must say, her condition is more promising than we expected." Eliza felt tears spring to her eyes. "Really? Really? With the new treatment protocol, I'm cautiously optimistic. She's a fighter, this one." When she hung up, Will was watching her with a soft expression. "Good news?" "The best." She wiped her eyes, laughing through tears. "God, I can't believe this is actually happening. Yesterday morning I was a broke librarian with a dying sister, and now you're a rich librarian with a sister who's going to be fine. And a fake husband who's being surprisingly wonderful about all of this." The words hung in the air between them. Will's green eyes searched her face, and for a moment, Eliza thought he might kiss her again. But then a group of tourists walked by, cameras flashing, and the spell broke. "We should probably head back," Will said. "I'm sure someone's already posted photos of us looking too happy for a business arrangement." That evening, Will insisted on taking her to dinner at a small French bistro in Soho. "Research," he called it. "We need to learn each other's favorites if we're going to convince people we're madly in love." "Okay," Eliza said, twirling wine in her glass. "Favorite color?" "Green, like your eyes." She nearly choked on her wine. That was smooth. "I have my moments. Your turn." "Blue. Like the ocean in those travel magazines I'll never be able to afford to visit." "Where would you go? If money wasn't an object?" "Santorini," she said without hesitation. "Those white buildings against the blue sea. It looks like heaven. Consider it our honeymoon destination." Eliza stared at him. "Will, you don't have to. 6 months, remember?" We need to sell this thing properly. But there was something in his eyes that suggested the trip wouldn't be just for show. As the evening wore on, Eliza found herself genuinely enjoying his company. Will was nothing like the cold, calculating businessman she'd expected. He was funny, asking about her most embarrassing library stories and sharing tales of his own corporate disasters. "I once accidentally sent a love poem to the entire board of directors," he confessed over dessert. "A love poem? You?" "I was 25 and convinced I was the next Byron. The poem was terrible, and I'd meant to send it to, well, someone who didn't appreciate it anyway." "What happened to her?" "The someone." Will's expression grew distant. "She chose someone with a bigger trust fund. Apparently, love poems don't pay for private jets." "Her loss," Eliza said softly. When he looked at her, something shifted in his expression. "You know, I'm starting to think so too." Later, as they stood outside her Brooklyn apartment building, the awkwardness returned. What did fake married couples do at the end of the evening? "So," Will said, hands in his pockets, "tomorrow we should probably figure out living arrangements. Father expects us to be living together by next week." Eliza's heart jumped. "Living together? My penthouse has plenty of space. Separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms. You'd hardly know I was there." But as Eliza watched him drive away, she realized that was exactly the problem. She was starting to hope she would know he was there. "This is not an apartment," Eliza breathed, standing in the marble foyer of Will's penthouse. "This is a small country." Will chuckled, taking her single suitcase, which looked painfully out of place next to the crystal chandelier. "Wait until you see the library. I had a feeling you'd appreciate it." He was right. The library was magnificent, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a rolling ladder, and windows overlooking Central Park. Eliza actually gasped. "Is that a first edition Austen? Pride and Prejudice, 1813. My one weakness." Will looked almost embarrassed. "I know it's not very masculine to admit, but—" "Are you kidding? It's perfect." Eliza ran her fingers along the leather spine. "Most people think romance novels are fluff, but Austen wrote about women finding their own power within society's constraints. She was revolutionary." The way Will looked at her made her stomach flutter. "You constantly surprise me, Mrs. Stone. Good thing we have 6 months for you to figure me out, Mr. Stone." Their eyes met and held, the air between them crackling with something that felt dangerously real. Then Will cleared his throat. "Your room is down this hall. I hope you'll be comfortable." Comfortable was an understatement. The guest bedroom was larger than her entire Brooklyn apartment, complete with a walk-in closet and bathroom that looked like a spa. But as luxurious as it was, Eliza felt suddenly, profoundly alone. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Maya. "Girl, I saw the wedding photos online. Who is he and why didn't you tell me?" Eliza stared at her phone. She'd been so focused on Harmony that she'd forgotten about the rest of her life. How was she supposed to explain this to anyone? A knock interrupted her panic. "Eliza? I ordered Chinese takeout. Hope that's okay. I figured we should talk about logistics." They spread the containers across his massive dining table, the intimate dinner a stark contrast to the formal room. "So," Will said, serving her lo mein with silver chopsticks that probably cost more than her monthly rent, "we should establish some ground rules. For living together, I mean." "Right. Rules." Eliza twirled noodles nervously. "I'm usually pretty quiet. I read a lot. I don't leave messes." "I wasn't worried about messes." Will's smile was gentle. "I was thinking more about boundaries. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable here." "What kind of boundaries?" "Well, my home office is off limits during business calls. The gym is yours whenever you want it. And," he hesitated, "I usually go for morning runs in the park. You're welcome to join me, but I know it's early." "How early?" 6 a.m. Eliza nearly choked on her wine. "You voluntarily wake up at 6 a.m. to run?" "It's peaceful. No paparazzi, no board members, no father." He shrugged. "Just me in the city waking up. That actually sounds nice." "Really? You're not just being polite?" "Will, if I was just being polite, I'd tell you that your taste in Chinese food is excellent, instead of pointing out that you ordered enough to feed 6 people. His laugh was genuine, unguarded. "I may have overestimated our appetites." As they ate, Will asked about her work at the library, her friends, her life before all this. For the first time since signing that contract, Eliza felt like herself again. "What about you?" she asked. "What's William Stone like when he's not being the perfect CEO heir?" "Honestly, I have no idea." His admission was quiet. "I've been groomed for this role since birth. Private schools, summer internships, board meetings instead of birthday parties. I don't think I've ever just been myself." "That's sad." "Is it? I've never known anything different." Eliza set down her chopsticks and really looked at him. "What would you do if you could be anyone?" "Anyone?" "Anyone. No expectations, no family business, no rules." Will was quiet for a long moment. "I'd probably teach. Literature, maybe. Or travel. Actually see the world instead of just flying between boardrooms." He laughed self-consciously. "Pathetic, right? I have everything most people dream of, and I want to throw it away to become a high school teacher." "It's not pathetic. It's honest." Eliza reached across the table without thinking and touched his hand. "Maybe you can't throw it all away, but you could find small ways to be that person. Volunteer at literacy programs, take actual vacations. Fall in love with a librarian who quotes Austen." The words hung in the air between them. Eliza's hand was still covering his, and she could feel his pulse quickening under her palm. When had their fake arrangement started feeling so real? Her phone rang, breaking the spell. Switzerland again. "Miss Simon, wonderful news." Harmony responded even better than expected to today's treatment. "She's awake and asking for you." Tears sprang to Eliza's eyes. "She's awake? Really? Would you like to speak with her?" "Liza?" Harmony's voice was weak but unmistakably her sister's. "Where are you? The nurses said something about Switzerland, but that's crazy, right?" "Not crazy," Eliza laughed through her tears. "Long story, but you're getting the best treatment in the world. How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck." "Which I guess I did." Even weak, Harmony's sense of humor was intact. "But Liza, how are we paying for this? This place looks like a palace." Eliza glanced at Will, who was watching her with warm eyes. "I had some help, from a friend." After hanging up, she found Will had moved to the couch, giving her privacy, but staying close enough to offer silent support. "She's okay?" he asked. "More than okay. She's going to be fine." Eliza sank beside him, suddenly exhausted by the emotional roller coaster. "I can't believe this is real." "Believe it. You saved her. We saved her." Will turned to face her fully. "Eliza, you need to understand something. I didn't do this for tax benefits or good press. I did it because watching you sacrifice everything for someone you love, it reminded me that not everyone in the world has ulterior motives. Will, I know this is supposed to be fake. I know we have an end date. But sitting here with you, talking about books and dreams and terrible Chinese food portions, this is the most real I've felt in years." Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we don't have to pretend as hard as I thought." Before she could lose her nerve, Eliza leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't like their wedding kiss, polite and performed. This was honest, desperate, full of all the confusion and growing feelings she'd been trying to ignore. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Will rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates things," he whispered. "Everything's been complicated since the moment I signed that contract." "True." His thumb traced her cheek. "But I'm starting to think complicated might be worth it." As Eliza fell asleep that night in her luxurious guest room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump, without knowing if there was water below. But for the first time in her life, she was ready to leap. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad," Will said, adjusting his bow tie in the mirror of their shared bathroom. The intimacy of getting ready together for the Hamptons charity gala felt both natural and terrifying. "I feel like I am." Eliza smoothed her emerald green gown, another gift from Will that probably cost more than her car. "What if I say something wrong? What if someone asks about our whirlwind romance and I panic?" Will turned from the mirror, and Eliza's breath caught. He was devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, but it was the gentle way he looked at her that made her knees weak. "Hey." He stepped closer, his hands settling on her bare shoulders. "Remember what we practiced?" They'd spent the morning creating their love story, how they met at a bookstore, romantic but believable. Their first date at a small cafe in Brooklyn, Will's idea, showing he valued her world, and how he proposed during a sunset walk in Central Park, completely fictional but utterly swoon-worthy. "We met at Shakespeare & Co.'s," Eliza recited. You were buying Neruda's poetry. I was reorganizing the classic section, and I asked if you knew anything about love sonnets because I was trying to impress someone. Will continued, his thumbs tracing small circles on her skin. Little did I know the someone would end up being you. That's actually a beautiful story. Yeah, it is. His voice was husky. Too bad it's not true. Their eyes met in the mirror, and for a moment the line between performance and reality blurred completely. Will's hands tightened on her shoulders, and Eliza was certain he was about to kiss her when the doorman's call interrupted. "Cars here," Will said, stepping back with visible effort. The Hamptons estate was like something from a movie. Sprawling gardens, a string quartet, and enough diamonds to fund a small nation. Eliza felt like an imposter until Will's hand found hers, his fingers interlacing with confidence that steadied her nerves. "William," a sharp voice cut through the elegant chatter. Victoria Ashford approached, resplendent in red silk and predatory smile. "And this must be the mysterious bride we've all been dying to meet." "Victoria," Will's voice was polite but cool. "Eliza, this is Victoria Ashford. Victoria, my wife, Eliza." Victoria's perfectly manicured hand extended with the enthusiasm of someone touching a snake. "How quaint. Will tells me you're a librarian." "I am." Eliza lifted her chin. "I help people find exactly what they're looking for. It's quite rewarding." "I'm sure." Victoria's laugh was crystalline and cutting. Will always did have a thing for charity cases. The insult hit like a slap, but before Eliza could respond, Will stepped closer, his arm sliding protectively around her waist. "Actually, I have a thing for intelligent, compassionate women who read Shakespeare for pleasure instead of Instagram captions for entertainment." His smile was razor sharp. "Eliza, darling, wasn't there something you wanted to show me in the garden?" As they walked away, Eliza could practically feel Victoria's glare burning holes in her back. "Charity case?" Eliza muttered once they were alone among the roses. "Victoria's just bitter. We dated briefly in college before I realized she collected men like handbags. Impressive to show off, but ultimately empty." Will stopped walking and turned to face her. "You're not a charity case, Eliza. You're... what? You're the most genuine person I've ever met." Before she could process that statement, they were interrupted by a throat clearing. Stone Sr. approached with two other older men in tow. "William, there you are. I'd like you to meet Harrison Wells and Robert Chen from the Acquisition Committee." The next hour was a blur of business talk disguised as small talk. Eliza found herself fielding questions about her background, carefully edited version, her family. She mentioned Harmony was studying music in Europe, and her thoughts on Will's leadership potential, surprisingly easy to answer honestly. "Your wife has excellent instincts," Mr. Wells told Will during a brief lull. "She clearly understands the importance of family values in business leadership." Will's hand found Eliza's, squeezing gently. "She understands what matters most." Later, as they swayed together during the dancing portion of the evening, Eliza felt herself relaxing for the first time all night. "We're actually pulling this off," she whispered against Will's ear. "Told you we made a good team." His breath was warm against her temple. "How are you feeling about your first society event debut?" "Like I'm wearing a costume that's too expensive and pretending to be someone I'm not." "You're not pretending to be anyone but yourself. That's what makes you so perfect for this." "Perfect for playing your fake wife, you mean?" Will was quiet for so long that Eliza pulled back to look at his face. His green eyes were intense, searching. "Is that what you think this is?" "Still?" Before she could answer, the music swelled, and they were swept back into the crowd of dancing couples. But Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that Will's question held layers she wasn't ready to explore. The evening took a dramatic turn when Victoria cornered Eliza by the champagne fountain. "You know this is all temporary, don't you?" Victoria's voice was honey over poison. "Will's just playing house until Daddy gets him the CEO position. 6 months, maybe a year. Then you'll get your little payout and disappear back to Brooklyn, where you belong." Eliza's stomach dropped. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please. Everyone knows about the contract. Will's father isn't exactly subtle about his business arrangements." Victoria sipped her champagne delicately. "The real question is whether you're naive enough to think any of this is real." "Eliza?" Will appeared beside them, instantly sensing the tension. "Everything all right?" "Perfect," Victoria purred. "I was just telling your lovely wife how much everyone admires your commitment to philanthropy." After Victoria glided away, Will studied Eliza's face with concern. What did she say to you? Nothing important, but Eliza's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. The ride home was quiet, tension thick between them. It wasn't until they were back in the penthouse that Will finally spoke. You've been different since talking to Victoria. What did she tell you? Eliza kicked off her heels and sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Does it matter? She's not wrong. About what? This. Eliza gestured between them. Us. It's all temporary, Will. Contract marriage. Remember, 6 months, and then we both go back to our real lives. Will sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. What if I don't want to go back? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs. Will, what if 6 months isn't enough? What if this thing between us, whatever it is, what if it's worth more than any contract? You can't mean that. Can I? He reached for her hands. Eliza, 3 days ago I was going through the motions of a life that felt scripted. Now I wake up excited to see you reading in the library. I look forward to our morning coffee conversations. I find myself thinking about your smile during board meetings. That's just novelty. New situation, new person. Stop. Will's voice was firm. Don't diminish this because you're scared. I'm scared too, but I'm not going to pretend that what's happening between us isn't real. Eliza stared at him, her heart and head at war. Everything logical said this was temporary, that she should protect herself. But when she looked at Will, really looked at him, she saw a man who was offering her something she'd never dared to hope for. What are you asking me? I'm asking you to consider the possibility that this contract was just the beginning. That maybe we could build something real together. And if it doesn't work out? Will's smile was soft, vulnerable. Then at least we'll have tried for something extraordinary instead of settling for safe. As they sat there in the quiet luxury of his penthouse, Eliza realized she was facing the biggest decision of her life, not signing a contract this time, but choosing whether to trust her heart. The question was she brave enough to leap? Eliza woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Will humming in the kitchen. For a moment, she let herself imagine this was real, that she was waking up in her own home with her husband who made coffee and hummed off key while reading the morning news. Then, reality crashed back. His confession from last night sat heavy in her chest, equal parts thrilling and terrifying. Morning, Will said when she appeared in the doorway, hair messy and wearing his Columbia University t-shirt she'd borrowed. The way his eyes softened when he saw her made her stomach flutter dangerously. Morning. She accepted the mug he offered, their fingers brushing. Will, about last night, you don't have to say anything yet. He leaned against the counter, studying her face. I know I dropped a lot on you. Just think about it, okay? Before she could respond, her phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen, and Eliza's stomach dropped. She'd been avoiding her best friend's increasingly frantic calls. I have to take this, she said, stepping onto the balcony. Eliza Marie Simon. Maya's voice was so loud Eliza had to hold the phone away from her ear. You got married and didn't tell me? I had to find out from page 6. Page 6, Eliza. Maya, I can explain. You'd better explain. Who is this William Stone? Is he good to you? Are you pregnant? Oh, God. Please tell me you're not pregnant and rushing into marriage with some rich guy who's going to break your heart. I'm not pregnant. Eliza glanced through the window where Will was pretending not to eavesdrop. It's complicated. More complicated how? Liza, you've been my best friend since kindergarten. You tell me when you change toothpaste brands. But marriage to a billionaire? Radio silence. Guilt twisted in Eliza's chest. Can you come over? Today? I need to tell you everything. 2 hours later, Maya sat in Will's pristine living room, her jaw somewhere around her ankles. Let me get this straight, Maya said slowly. You signed a contract to marry a stranger for $2 million to save Harmony. That's the simplified version, yes. And now you're living with Mr. Gorgeous Billionaire who makes you coffee and owns first edition Jane Austen. Also accurate. And you're catching feelings. Eliza buried her face in her hands. I'm so screwed, Maya. Honey, from where I'm sitting, you're the opposite of screwed. Maya glanced toward the kitchen where Will was giving them privacy. That man looks at you like you hung the moon. And the way he defended you to that Victoria witch at the gala? Girl, I watched the video. That was not acting. You watched video? It's all over social media. A couple goals and power couple moment are trending. Maya showed her phone. Look at this headline. Stone cold in love. CEO's mystery wife steals hearts at Hampton Gala. Eliza scrolled through the photos with growing amazement. There she was, looking confident and radiant in Will's arms. They looked happy, in love, real. This is insane. What's insane is that you're questioning whether his feelings are genuine. Liza, I've known you for 20 years. You're terrible at hiding your emotions, but you're excellent at reading other people. What does your gut tell you? Before Eliza could answer, Will appeared with a tray of sandwiches and that gentle smile that made her heart skip. Sorry to interrupt. Thought you might be hungry. He set the tray down and started to leave. Stay, Maya said firmly. I want to talk to you. Will glanced at Eliza, who nodded, and sat across from Maya with the wariness of a man facing a protective best friend. So, William Stone, Maya began, crossing her arms. What are your intentions with my best friend? Maya, Eliza protested. No, it's okay. Will's voice was steady, honest. I know how this looks. Rich guy, convenient marriage, too good to be true. If I were you, I'd be suspicious too. And I've never met anyone like Eliza. She quotes Shakespeare while making pancakes. She cries during Pixar movies but argues philosophy like a debate champion. She gave up everything to save her sister without thinking twice. Will's eyes found Eliza's. She makes me want to be the man she sees when she looks at me. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Okay, I like him. Maya. What? He passes the best friend test. Plus he made us turkey sandwiches with the crusts cut off. That's serious boyfriend behavior right there. The afternoon dissolved into easy conversation. Will seemed genuinely interested in Eliza's stories about their college adventures, and Maya grilled him about his intentions with the fondness of an older sister. For a few hours it felt like the most natural thing in the world, until Stone Sr. arrived unannounced. William! He strode into the penthouse like he owned it, which technically he did. We need to discuss the Metropolitan Museum event tomorrow. And you are? Maya Chen, sir, Eliza's best friend. Maya stood, offering her hand with professional politeness. Ah, yes, the friend. You'll need to sign this. Stone Sr. produced a non-disclosure agreement. Standard procedure for anyone in our social circle. Excuse me, Eliza stood, anger flashing in her eyes. She's not signing anything. Everyone signs, dear. Can't have friends running to tabloids with intimate family details. She's not everyone. She's my best friend, Eliza said firmly. And if you think I'm going to ask her to sign away her right to speak freely about her own experiences, you're mistaken. The room went dead quiet. Stone Sr.'s eyes narrowed, and Eliza realized she might have just made a huge mistake. Eliza, Will said carefully, perhaps we could discuss this privately. No. Eliza's voice was stronger now. I won't ask someone I love to sign away their voice just to make your father comfortable. Stone Sr. stepped closer, his presence suddenly menacing. Young lady, you seem to forget that you are here at my family's discretion. This marriage exists because I allow it. Push too hard, and you might find yourself back in Brooklyn with nothing to show for it but a voided contract. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Eliza felt Maya tense beside her, Will's sharp intake of breath, but she didn't back down. Then void it. The words surprised even her. Stone Sr. blinked, clearly not expecting that response. I beg your pardon? Void the contract. Send me back to Brooklyn. I won't live under threats, and I won't ask the people I care about to sacrifice their integrity for your comfort. Eliza, Will said urgently, you don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. She turned to face him, her heart breaking at the panic in his eyes. I understand that this was always going to be impossible. Your father just reminded me why. Stone Sr. smiled coldly. How refreshing. Honesty at last. Very well, Miss Simon. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, the contract is void. Your sister's medical bills become your responsibility again, and you return to your previous life. William's engagement to the Ashford girl will be announced by week's end. With that bombshell, he left, taking all the air in the room with him. The Ashford girl? Eliza whispered. Will's face was pale, stricken. Eliza, that's not… He can't just… Can't he? She grabbed her purse, suddenly desperate to escape. Seems like he can do whatever he wants, including marry you off to Victoria the moment I'm out of the picture. Where are you going? I need air. I need to think. She paused at the door, looking back at Will's devastated face. I need to figure out if what we have is worth fighting for, or if I'm just fooling myself again. As the elevator doors closed, Eliza caught a glimpse of Will reaching for her, Maya's hand on his arm holding him back. The last thing she heard was Maya saying, "Let her go. She needs to figure this out on her own." But as Eliza stepped onto the street, surrounded by the noise and chaos of New York, she wondered if some fights were too big for love to win, even if the love was real. Eliza found herself in the one place that had always made sense, the New York Public Library. She sat in the Rose Main reading room, surrounded by the whispered conversations of students and researchers, trying to find clarity in the familiar sanctuary of books and silence. Her phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Will, calls from Maya, even a message from an unknown Swiss number that was probably Harmony. She turned it off. For the first time in days, she needed to think without anyone else's voice in her head. 24 hours to decide. Keep fighting for something that might be real, or protect everyone by walking away. Eliza Simon? She looked up to find an elderly man with kind eyes and a weathered face. He wore a simple cardigan and carried a stack of books that looked older than the building itself. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Professor Edmund Hartwell. I taught literature at Columbia for 40 years before retiring." He gestured to the empty chair across from her. "May I? You look like someone wrestling with a particularly challenging text." Despite everything, Eliza smiled. "You could say that. The story I'm living doesn't seem to have a clear ending." "Ah, a romance then. They're always the most complicated." Professor Hartwell settled into his chair. "Real life rarely follows literary conventions, but perhaps that's what makes it interesting. May I ask what has you so troubled?" Something about his grandfatherly demeanor made Eliza want to confide in him. "Let's say someone offered you everything you thought you wanted, but the cost might be losing who you really are. What would you choose?" "That depends. Are we talking about Faustian bargains or Jane Austen compromises?" "I'm not sure I see the difference." Faust sold his soul for knowledge and power. He fundamentally changed who he was. Austen's heroines, on the other hand, learned to navigate society without sacrificing their principles. They found ways to be true to themselves while still getting their happy ending. Eliza considered that. And if society won't let them do both, then they change society, or at least their corner of it. Professor Hartwell leaned forward conspiratorially. "Tell me, my dear, in this story you're living, are you the heroine, or are you letting someone else write your ending?" Before Eliza could answer, her phone vibrated with a text that somehow got through even though she'd turned it off. The message was from an unknown number. "Eliza, it's Victoria. We need to talk. Coffee? 1 hour? I have information about Stone Sr. that you need to know." Against every instinct screaming at her to ignore it, Eliza found herself at a small cafe in Soho an hour later. Victoria sat in the corner, looking uncharacteristically subdued without her usual armor of designer perfection. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Victoria said, as Eliza sat down. "Neither was I." "What do you want, Victoria?" "To apologize first, and to tell you something that might save your marriage." Eliza blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" Victoria sighed, suddenly looking older. "I've been where you are, Eliza. In love with Will, caught in Stone Sr.'s web of manipulation, forced to choose between my heart and my survival." "You were in love with Will?" "Madly. Completely. He was different in college. Before his father's expectations crushed all the joy out of him." Victoria's smile was sad. "We dated for 2 years. I thought we'd get married, have the fairy tale. Then Stone Sr. made it clear that Will's inheritance depended on marrying someone who could advance the family's social standing. Someone whose father owned shipping companies, not Italian restaurants." Eliza felt an unexpected stab of sympathy. "So you walked away?" "I chose security. Married Charles Ashford for his title and his trust fund. Convinced myself it was practical." Victoria met her eyes. "Biggest mistake of my life. Do you know what it's like to watch the man you love become a shell of himself because you were too afraid to fight for him?" "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Stone Sr. is planning to do to you what he did to me. But this time, I know how to stop him." Victoria pulled out her phone and showed Eliza a recording app. "Stone Sr. has been planning this marriage termination since day one. The moment Will started showing real feelings for you, his father began documenting ways to void the contract. But here's what he doesn't know. I've been documenting his methods. She hit play. Stone Sr.'s voice filled the cafe. The Simon girl is becoming problematic. William is actually developing feelings, which wasn't part of the plan. We need her gone before she ruins everything. Threaten the sisters' medical bills if necessary. And get Victoria ready. Announce the engagement the moment the contract is voided. Eliza's blood ran cold. He planned this whole thing, including the non-disclosure demand yesterday. He wanted you to blow up so he'd have cause to void the contract. Victoria leaned forward. But here's the thing. He's been breaking contract terms himself. The agreement specified mutual respect and support. Threatening you and your friend violates those terms. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you fight. Use this recording. Expose him for the manipulative bastard he is. Victoria's eyes flashed with old anger. Make him pay for what he's done to both of us. Eliza stared at the phone. Why would you help me? This ruins your chance to marry Will. Victoria laughed, but it was hollow. Eliza, I've been married to a man who doesn't love me for 5 years. Trust me. You don't want a marriage built on manipulation and fear. Will deserves better, and so do you. But if I fight back, I risk everything. Harmony's treatment, Will's inheritance, or you save everything that actually matters. Victoria reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Don't make my mistake, Eliza. Don't choose fear. An hour later, Eliza stood outside Will's office building, Victoria's recording burning like fire in her phone. Through the glass windows, she could see Will at his desk, head in his hands, looking utterly defeated. Maya appeared beside her, slightly out of breath. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Will's been going crazy. He thinks you left for good. Maybe I should have. Bullshit. Maya grabbed her arm. Eliza Simon, I have never seen you run from a fight in your life. You fought for Harmony when the doctor said it was hopeless. You fought for every kid in our neighborhood to get library access. You fought your way through graduate school working 3 jobs. Why are you running now? Because this time, if I lose, I don't just hurt myself. I hurt Will. I hurt Harmony. And if you don't fight, you definitely lose. Maya turned her to face the building. He's up there, probably drafting his resignation letter because he thinks you're gone. His father is probably already calling caterers for the Victoria engagement party. Is that what you want? Eliza looked up at Will's window again. As if sensing her presence, he looked down, and their eyes met through 40 stories of glass and steel. Even from that distance, she could see the hope flicker to life in his face. Professor Hartwell's words echoed in her mind. Are you the heroine? Or are you letting someone else write your ending? I need a favor, Eliza told Maya, pulling out her phone. How good are you at creating viral social media content? Maya grinned. Honey, I made a video of my cat eating spaghetti get 2 million views. What do you have in mind? I'm thinking it's time the world met the real Stone Sr. Eliza held up her phone with Victoria's recording and learned what happens when you threaten a librarian's family. As they walked into the building together, Eliza felt something she hadn't experienced in days. Certainty. She might not know how this story would end, but she was damn sure going to be the one writing it. The elevator doors opened onto Will's floor, and Eliza stepped out, ready to fight for the love that had surprised them both. After all, the best love stories weren't the ones without obstacles. They were the ones where the heroine decided the love was worth any battle. The elevator seemed to take forever. With each floor, Eliza's heart hammered harder against her ribs. By the time she reached Will's office, she felt like she might faint, or conquer the world. Maybe both. Will's assistant looked up in surprise. Mrs. Stone, Mr. Stone didn't mention you were... He doesn't know I'm here. Eliza straightened her shoulders. But his father is about to. She burst through Will's office door like a woman on a mission. Will looked up from his computer, his face transforming from shock to relief to something that looked dangerously like joy. Eliza. He stood so quickly his chair rolled backward. I thought you'd left. I thought that I'd run away. Let your father win? She strode toward his desk with purpose. Will Stone, you clearly don't know your wife very well. The word wife hung in the air between them, and for a moment neither of them breathed. Wife? Will's voice was tentative, hopeful. Wife, Eliza confirmed. The real kind. The kind who fights for her marriage, not the contract kind who runs when things get complicated. Before Will could respond, Stone Sr.'s voice boomed from the doorway. How touching. Miss Simon, I believe your 24 hours aren't quite up, but since you're here, let's make this quick. I have a wedding to plan. Whose wedding would that be? Eliza turned to face him with a smile that could cut glass. William's, of course, to Victoria Ashford. The announcement goes out tomorrow. About that, Eliza pulled out her phone. I have something you might want to hear. She hit play, and Stone Sr.'s own voice filled the office. The Simon girl is becoming problematic. William is actually developing feelings, which wasn't part of the plan. The color drained from Stone Sr.'s face as his recorded confession continued. Behind him, the entire board of directors filed into the office. Maya must have worked fast. Gentlemen, Stone Sr. stammered, this is taken out of context. Is it? Harrison Wells stepped forward, his expression thunderous. Because it sounds like you've been manipulating this company's leadership transition through fraudulent means, and threatening an employee's family member to coerce business decisions, added Robert Chen. I believe that's both illegal and grounds for removal from the board. Stone Sr.'s eyes darted frantically between the board members and his son. William, surely you understand. This was all for the company, for your future. My future? Will moved to stand beside Eliza, his hand finding hers. You mean the future where I marry someone I don't love to satisfy your social climbing ambitions? Don't be naive, son. Love is a luxury we can't afford. No, Will's voice was steel. Love is the only thing we can't afford to live without. He turned to the board members. Gentlemen, I need you to know that my marriage to Eliza wasn't a business arrangement. It started as one, yes, but it became the most real thing in my life. If you can't accept a CEO who chooses love over manipulation, then you need a different CEO. Actually, Harrison Wells smiled, we've been hoping for a CEO with exactly those values. Your father's methods have been concerning us for some time. Maya appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but this has gone viral. Stone Exposed is trending worldwide, and every major news outlet is picking up the story. Stone Sr. looked at the phone screen and visibly paled. You've destroyed everything I built. No, Eliza said quietly. We've exposed what you built. There's a difference. An hour later, after the board had unanimously voted Stone Sr. out and confirmed Will as CEO, they sat alone in his office as the sun set over Manhattan. So, Will said, leaning back in his chair with an exhausted smile. That happened. Eliza curled up in the chair across from his desk. How do you feel about being CEO? Terrified. Excited. Like I might throw up. He grinned. How do you feel about being married to a CEO who might throw up? That depends. Are you asking as my contracted husband or my real husband? Will stood and walked around the desk, dropping to one knee beside her chair. Eliza's breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box. I'm asking as a man who fell in love with his fake wife and wants to spend the rest of his life earning the right to be her real husband. He opened the box, revealing a stunning but simple diamond ring. Eliza Simon Stone, will you marry me? For real this time? Tears blurred her vision as she looked down at this amazing, complicated, wonderful man who'd turned her whole world upside down. But what about the contract? The 6 months? I'm thinking we renegotiate. New terms. Forever. For love. With breakfast in bed on Sundays and terrible poetry when I'm feeling romantic. You know, Eliza said, sliding from the chair to kneel beside him. I hear librarians are excellent at contract negotiations. Is that a yes? That's a yes to everything. The ring, the poetry, the breakfast in bed, and especially the forever part. When he slipped the ring onto her finger, it fit perfectly. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home. 2 years later, the library was Eliza's favorite place in their new home, a cozy brownstone in Brooklyn that Will had insisted on buying despite his father's protests about downgrading. They'd filled it with books, laughter, and the kind of happiness that comes from building something real together. Mrs. Stone? Harmony's voice called from the piano room. Are you ready for your surprise? Eliza exchanged glances with Will, who was pretending to read while obviously waiting for something. What surprise? Harmony appeared in the doorway, walking steadily on legs that had made a full recovery, carrying a large wrapped box. Behind her, Maya grinned like she was about to burst. We know your second anniversary is next week, but we couldn't wait, Harmony said, setting the box on the coffee table. Inside was a photo album titled The Real Love Story. The first page showed a picture of Will buying books at Shakespeare in Cambaros, completely unaware that Eliza was reorganizing shelves in the background. Maya found this in her old photos, Harmony explained. Turns out your fake meet-cute story was actually real. You were both there the same day, 3 months before you ever signed that contract. Will stared at the photo, then at Eliza, wonder in his eyes. We were already in each other's orbit. Maybe some things are just meant to be, Eliza said softly. The album was filled with moments from their real courtship. Candid shots Maya had taken during their fake marriage, newspaper clippings about Will's company reforms, pictures from Harmony's recovery, and finally, photos from their real wedding 6 months later. A small ceremony in Central Park with everyone who mattered. The last page was a letter in Will's handwriting. To the librarian who taught a lost CEO that the best stories aren't the ones we plan, but the ones we're brave enough to live. Thank you for fighting for our impossible love story. Here's to writing many more chapters together. Forever yours, Will P.S. I'm still working on that terrible poetry I promised. Prepare yourself. Eliza laughed through her tears, pulling Will close for a kiss that tasted like forever and felt like home. Outside their window, New York hummed with 8 million love stories waiting to be written. But inside their library, surrounded by books and the people they loved most, Eliza and Will had found the only story that mattered. The one where love wins, contracts expire, but real marriages last forever. And if sometimes Will still wrote terrible poetry that made Eliza laugh until she cried, and if sometimes she still quoted Shakespeare while making pancakes, and if sometimes they still couldn't believe how a fake marriage had given them the realest love either had ever known, well, that just made their story even better. After all, the best romances aren't the perfect ones. They're the ones where two people decide that love is worth fighting for, even when the odds are impossible. Especially then, the end.